Ellen G. White was born in a broadleaf forest in the northern sector of North America. Today there are 3 large broadleaf forests around the world. The first one is in China, the second one is in Europe, and the third one is where Ellen White was born in November 26, 1827. Now I want to speak a little bit about the broadleaf forest, which is different than a forest of pine trees whose leaves are basically needles. Now the broadleaf forest has special characteristics, and I think it's important to understand, especially if we're going to understand Ellen G. White. Let's start with the farmhouse where she was born in. The farmhouse, if you look at it carefully, is basically the product of the main ingredient of a broadleaf forest, that is the tree. The roof, the floor, basic construction of the house was all made out of products that came from the tree. And if you look inside of the house where she was born, you would find hundreds of items that were the product of the tree. The chairs, the table, the cupboards, the tools which were usually kept inside the house, most of them had wood handles. The spoon to stir the soup, the wood to heat the food or to warm the house had all to be cut in the forest, brought to the farmhouse, and there the children or brothers and sisters would bring in the wood into the house. So wherever you looked in the house, there were products that came from the tree. Now, once you walked out of the house, the products were even more visible. The fences, the gate, the barn, the sheds. Everywhere you looked, you would find products made out of wood that would surround anyone living in that culture. If you wanted to leave the farm, you probably left in a wooden cart pulled by oxen tied together by a wooden yoke. Or if you left in a buggy, the buggy was made out of wood. If you traveled from the house to, let's say, the town of Gorham, or even if you went further about 12 miles into the town of Portland, Maine, the products of the tree were even more visible. At the time of her birth, probably the most important industry in Portland was the building of ships. And ships came from the tree. The tree was cut in the forest. It was floated down rivers and streams to Portland, and there it would become the masts and the body of the ships that traveled around the world. So what I'm stressing is that wood is a central character in the culture where Ellen White was born. And the reason I stress this is that to make all of these products from the wood takes a lot of skill and hard work. Unlike clay, which you can shape it and then fire it up and you have whatever you made, wood takes a lot more tools, a lot more skill, and especially a lot more time to produce whatever you're trying to produce. And I think all children raised in broadleaf forests acquire certain character traits, certain parts of their personality that are reflective of that tree that is so important in the broadleaf forest. Certainly Ellen acquired this work ethic, this stick-to-itiveness, the persistence necessary to solve problems. You will see it across all of her life. And she acquired those traits because she grew up in that world of the broadleaf forest. That world shaped her. Not only was it hard work and a lot of skill to live in shaping who she was. She would write about nature repeatedly in her books and articles. She would refer back to those early years on the farm in many, many instances as she talked, as she preached, and as she produced her writings. She was attracted to the animals, the insects, the birds, the flowers of the broadleaf forest. And she spent many hours. That was her favorite thing, to leave the house with her brothers and sisters and go into the forest. She observed the squirrels, the deer, the fawn, the blue jay, the owl, the fox, bear cubs, hundreds of different animal and plant and flower species. She loved to see the flowers. And this also will shape who she becomes in her adult years. This wonder for the world around her will never leave her, and I think it was all shaped in the broadleaf forest.